Welcome back to my channel. This is Nikki of Nikki's Homemade Crafts. Let's get started with part 1 of the Crochet Tips Mystery Crochet Along. We're going to use this yarn, or at least I'm going to use this yarn, which is bulky yarn, and it's called Home. Mary Maxim is sponsoring this Mystery Crochet Along. It is 68% cotton and 32% polyamide, which is pretty much just stuffing inside the little tube right here. So this is bulky yarn and it's super fun to use. You can use any other bulky yarn as well. There's other yarns that are similar. Some of them that come to mind would be like home deck yarn or t-shirt yarn, although t-shirt yarn is a little bit heavier than this. This is lighter, but any other bulky yarn should do fine as well. You can probably also go up or down in weight, so using worsted or super bulky yarn. Just keep in mind you may want to change the amount of stitches or rows or rounds that I'm providing in the pattern, so maybe follow the measurements instead. I will be providing you with kind of 2 different patterns. So the video tutorial is going to show a smaller version, so those are great for those who don't want to crochet too much, or if you are using thicker yarn such as super bulky yarn, then that pattern is probably great. If you're following bulky or worsted, check out the written pattern. It has additional rounds or stitches, etc. for a bigger version. In fact, I even have a optional part, which is kind of like a special feature. So if you want to do that, you're also going to need some DK yarn. For me, that is Sunrise, also from Mary Maxim. So I use this yarn. So if you're going to use this yarn for part 3, that is for special feature. If you want to do that, that is totally fine. Again, that is optional. I'm also using a 6mm hook. This is a Furls metal streamline hook. And if you're using the special feature pattern with the DK yarn, you're going to need also a smaller hook size. For part 1, you're going to use the darkest color. That's all you need at this point. Because this Mystery Crochet Along is a tips related Mystery Crochet Along, I'll be providing you with lots of tips throughout. So this is maybe a non-traditional type of pattern tutorial, so it's maybe a little longer than normal because I'm really highly focusing on making sure that you understand the tips throughout. It will allow you to become a better crocheter and simply get more confidence as you're crocheting along. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Right away, we're going to start with a tip. So, you have 2 different choices on how to do a magic ring. So, there is the choice to do an alternative magic ring. So, for the alternative magic ring, you would make a slip knot and then you make 2 chains. And then you will be placing all your stitches into the very first chain that you made. So that would be 7 single crochet stitches in this pattern. Once you're done with the 7 single crochet stitches, you would be using the yarn end right here, and you would be weaving it in all around in a circle. I highly recommend in the back. So you would go through your stitches. Right here, you simply weave it through and pull, and that will close up this hole, and therefore it looks like just like a normal regular magic ring. But if you prefer the traditional magic ring, then you would be doing the following. You take your yarn. I like to hold it with my hand, with my 2 fingers down here, then wrap it around. I like to go through my loop that I created, pull my yarn through. Now I'm going to hold it so you can see everything is staying in place. I'm holding it, adjusting my yarn as I usually hold it. Now I insert my ring finger into the magic ring, therefore keeping the ring open and tight and everything is not loosey-goosey. Now I'm going to make a chain just to keep everything in place. And now I'm going to add my 7 single crochet stitches into the ring. And you can see how my ring finger stays in place, keeping everything sturdy and actually easy to handle. That ring finger tip is really crucial because if you don't do that, you may have some issues. And that is why a lot of people give up on magic rings. But as you can see, that magic ring keeps the tension and therefore making the magic ring easier. And then once you're done with your magic ring, you can let it go and then you pull your yarn end, which closes up the hole. Close it tight. And if it opens up a little bit, that's okay. You can weave this end through later and therefore closing it all the way. Now, I like to use my yarn end as a stitch marker. So that's another great tip. So if you don't have a stitch marker on hand, use your yarn end. So what I do is I simply make a loop and hang it over like so, and then just pretend it's not there. And then I can do my continuous rounds, and that's what we're going to do. So once you have your 7 single crochet stitches in your magic ring or alternative magic ring, it is time to do your continuous rounds. So insert your hook into the first stitch, and now you're going to place 2 single crochet stitches per stitch. So that means you're going to end up with 14 single crochet stitches in the second round. So you're going to go until you hit your stitch marker, or pretty much the end of the first round. As you can see here, here's my stitch marker, so I know exactly that this is the beginning or the end of the round. So I'm going to pull it out and I move it up so I can go into the next round. In the next round, we're going to crochet 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochets. And now you're going to repeat that. 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochets. Now repeat that until the end of the round. Once you're done, you're now going into the next round. So move up your stitch marker. In the following round, you're going to crochet 1 single crochet for the next 2 stitches and then 2 single crochets. I'm going to give you a tip here right here because this is a really fun one, and if you look really closely, you're actually going to make your life much easier. So for continuous rounds, you're going to look at your increases. So this is how the increases look like. You can see them right here, right? Both of these are increases. And an easy way to remember when you need to do the increase without having to count how many single crochets you have to do, you can simply look at your increase. Instead of saying 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches and then an increase, you could also say 1 single crochet until you see the increase and then you place an increase. So therefore you don't have to count your single crochet stitches right here. So let me show you. So right here, instead of counting, I'm going to look. So this is where my increase is. So right here, you can look at the V's, right? And right below the V's, that's where we're looking at. So right here, there's no increase. Right here, there's no increase. But right here, there's an increase. You see the 2 V's, and right in the center of it, you see the V, the top V, and that is where we're going to place the increase. So you can see right here. So we're going to place 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then here is the increase. So 2 single crochets. So you're going to do that until the end of the round. So now we're going to continue into the next round, or I should say rounds, because we're going to do a few more of these increasing rounds. So I moved up my stitch marker, and now let's do the trick that I just told you. We're going to crochet 1 single crochet per stitch until we hit the increase. So let's look at it. Right here, there's no increase. Okay, so just do 1 single crochet. And then right here is also no increase. So right here is 1 single crochet. So the next one, right here, there's no increase. So 1 single crochet. But right here is an increase. There's 2 V's, and then right between the V is a top V. So I'm calling the front one a V and the top one a V, right? So front V, top V. So right between it is a top V, and that means right here, we're going to place an increase. So right on top. There's another trick though that you can remember. So you can see how the number here increases. So we went first right here with 1 single crochet, then an increase. And here's 2 single crochets and then an increase. Now it's 1, 2, 3 single crochets and an increase. So you can see how that number increases by 1 in each round. So that is another trick on how you can remember where you are. I need you to keep increasing your circle, and now you have 2 choices. You're either going to do the smaller one, where you're going to do it until you have 1 single crochet in 5 stitches and then an increase. And then once you're done with the round, you stop there. Or if you're going to do the bigger one, then you're going to do 1 single crochet into the next 7 stitches and then an increase. So that's how far you're going to do it, okay? So I'm going to show you how it looks like once you finish with the 5. So that means you have then 2 more rounds here to do. And if you're doing the larger one, you have 4 more rounds to do. As you can see now, this is how big the little version is going to go, which means we now have here until 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets and an increase. Okay, so that means you went from 1 single crochet and increase, 2 single crochets and increase, 3 single crochets and increase, 4 single crochets and an increase, and then 5 single crochets and an increase. If you're doing the bigger version, you're going to go up until you have 7 single crochets and an increase. Okay, so you just keep on going. That number increases by 1 per round. Now that's just a little subsection, right? You repeat that all the way around, so that should be 7 times in total. So here is another tip. One of the questions I always get is like, how many stitches should I have per round? So if I, for example, don't write down how many stitches you should have, you can easily calculate that. So if you see that a pattern says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets and an increase, but then you do that all the way around, you started out with 7 single crochet stitches. So you're going to take the total amount of stitches for that repeat. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the increase is 2 of them, so 6, 7. So you're going to take 7 times the original 7. So that's 7 times 7 means you should have 49 stitches in this round. So you can calculate that at any time for rounds. Now for the bigger circle, so if you're making the bigger project, you would go all the way up until you have 7 single crochet stitches and an increase. So that means it would be 9 stitches, right, per pattern repeat. So it would be 9 times 7, and that means you would have 63 stitches per round. Now that we've finished our circle, we want a clean transition. And you can see here for continuous rounds, you always have kind of like a edge right here, right? So if I would cut it and now weave it in, you would have that little bit of an edge, and you don't want that. So in order to prevent that, we're going to cut our yarn. It doesn't have to be long, it can be right here. So a little snip. And what you're going to do now is you're going to pull out your yarn, and what we're doing is the invisible join. Okay, so you're going to pull it out so it comes out of the V right there. You're going to attach your yarn to your needle, and what we're now going to do is we're going to imitate the next stitch by using the yarn that we have in our hand. So you're going to go through the next stitch. So we want to imitate this. That means we're going to go around here and go into the next stitch. So we're following this line here. And now we need to go back up and go back in where we came from. But I'm going to point towards the back because I'm going to weave in my end after. And I'm pulling a little bit so that way it imitates this stitch. And then now what you're going to do is you're going to weave in your ends. So the way I like to weave in my ends, so first of all, I'm going to pull out my stitch marker. I like to weave in my ends in a zigzag. So kind of going like this. Okay, however you want to do your zigzag. Now if you have yarn that you can split in half, I sometimes even split my yarn in half and then weave it in, and you can even knot it somewhere wherever you want. In fact, you can even split your yarn when you weave in your yarn, and I'm talking about the yarn that's already crocheted, because that way it makes your yarn tighter as you're going through it. Once you're done, it looks like this. So here's the next tip. So we have now everything woven in. It looks like this from the back. However, we want this part to be a little bit more sturdy. So there's a few different ways to do that, but one really easy way is to simply make a second circle exactly the same size, and I would like you to do that. And I would like you to use a plastic canvas, and I just have a bunch of sheets at home, so I just cut mine so it would fit exactly this circle. Okay, so what we're going to do is, in order to make this nice and sturdy, we have 2 circles So if you're making the larger size, make 2 of the larger sizes. If you're doing the smaller version, do 2 of the smaller versions. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our plastic canvas, put it right in between the 2 circles. So we're going to align our circles. And now what we're going to do is sew it together. Okay, so if you feel like your plastic canvas is a little big, you can simply cut it a little bit more. I have it adjusted so that it's exactly fitting, but I may have to cut a little bit more. I'm seeing here that it may go over, so I will probably cut a little bit extra. So what we want to do is we want to have the pretty side, or the right side, however you want to call it, on the outside. That means the back of your work is on the inside. Now, if you feel like that is a prettier side for you, then you can have that on the outside. But I usually do it this way. So I have this side on the outside and this side. So we're going to make a sandwich. And now we're going to take the same yarn and a needle, of course. And now we're going to sew our piece together. So there's a few different ways in how you can sew something. You can even crochet it if you want to. But I feel like this is a really clean way to do this. So I'm going to insert my yarn through one of my stitches. So I'm just going to pick here one stitch. I'm going to go through and I'm going to align it with one other stitch. So these 2 are now parallel to each other. So I'm going to go through. Now you can right away add a knot here somewhere, but I'm going to let it hang and I'm going to do that. So what we're going to do is now go back and forth in an S shape and go through the stitches. So just simply back and forth. Now you can see that your stitches are always aligned in a parallel. So you always want to go through the parallel stitches. Okay, so in an S format. However, and I'm just going to go back and forth. So go back and forth all the way around until you come back to your starting point. And then I'll show you how to do the second S all the way around. So it's in between, so we don't have these gaps. So you see there's a yarn right here that we just did, and then there's nothing here, and then here's an extra. Okay, so let's go all the way around. So now that we've finished, we need to now go in between the stitches. Okay, so what you can do is you go through one of these loops like this and just move over. So that way you can run your stitches back and forth again. So what we want to do now is we want to go in between the stitches. So like right here, I'm going to show you by leaving the loops out a little bit instead of pulling it all the way through. So you have one loop here. And if I now go into the next one and pull over, so you can see how these loops are kind of next to each other, but they were right before when we did the previous round, they're right in between. So you can see them here. So let me point to them right here, here, here. But we want now some of them over here as well, right? So that's what this is going to do by going through it again all the way around. So that way everything looks clean and it looks exactly the same. Plus it makes it a little bit sturdier. I like to think of the system like a sewing machine, right? So it is like 2 S's kind of shifted over. So it looks like, so if I would draw this, right, and you have your holes, right, this is where your stitches, the spaces are between your stitches, right, so this is where the stitches would be. So if you are weaving your yarn through, you would do it as an S shape like this, right, and you do this all the way around. Now, but if you come back to it, you make like either a little knot or you shift over your yarn a little bit because you're coming out on the same space. So you just shift it over. So that way you can come back. So it's like a round, right? And then now you go this way. So that way you're covering the other side too. And it's like 2 S's, right? But it's in a loop. So that way it keeps it really, really strong. And it also looks the same on either side. Plus, when you pull, it doesn't look like a zigzag, okay? Because sometimes when you pull too hard, it pushes it together and it looks like a zigzag on the side. So this way, it looks at all even. So that's what we're going to do. And we're just going to go all the way around one more time and doing the second S shape and then just fasten off. And once you're done, it's going to look like this. So you can see how it's very clean all the way around and it's nicely sewn in. And because of the plastic canvas, it is actually really sturdy. So that's what we're going to need. So we have the circle like disc shaped and it's very sturdy. So this is part 1 of the mystery crochet along, all about tips and tricks. So now that you did this, I would love to see your circles. So make sure that you are posting your final result of part 1 into my group called Crocheting with Nikki, and be sure to use the corresponding hashtag for this month's mystery crochet along. I'm so excited for part 2, so make sure you come back to it. That is in 2 days, depending on when you watch this. But if you're watching this on the first day, then in 2 days, you're going to see part 2. So be sure to watch that. And if you're watching this at a later date, you will see the part 2 video pop up immediately shortly after this video. So I'll see you in part 2 in a couple of days. See you then. Be sure to like, comment, and share this video. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the bell to get a notification next time I'm publishing a video or go live. Now go ahead and watch the next video. You're going to want to, I promise you do.